Welcome to the Personal Podcast, the podcast where we get to meet the real person behind the professional. Claire Preston is sat opposite me. Claire is Head of Operations at the Power of Women, Chair of Halo Project and Director of Open North Foundation. Quite busy. So without further ado, because one of the rules is no small talk as well as no direct business chat, we will go straight into the podcast. So, Claire, female genital mutilation, does that actually happen here in the North East?
Sadly, FGM happens within every local authority, but absolutely here within the North East.
I was just so shocked when I looked on the website of the Halo Project to see that.
Most people are. It is a desperate state of affairs, isn't it, that this actually occurs. But I think in the year 2021, I believe there were around 6,000 referrals to the NHS in the UK for people who had been subjected to FGM.
6,000? And how many of those, do you know how many were in the North East?
I don't, to be honest. And the scary thing is as well, Charlotte, is that that's only the ones that we know about.
Oh, that's
so
true.
With every statistic, there are always the unheard. So really worrying.
Goodness me, just horrific. And also other shocking things on that website. Forced marriage, honour-based violence. Again, that's happening.
100%. Really, really alarming, the extent. And unfortunately, these figures are going up, very much so, along with domestic violence generally since COVID as well. But in the last 5 years, it's gone up dramatically. And, yeah, I think the cases of honour-based abuse were around 3,000 again for that same period, 20 to 21, with honour-based killings, approximately 15 a year, are actually that we're aware of.
And some of those happening in the North East?
There haven't been many reported locally, but they do happen.
Wow. So how does the organisation you work for help these poor, desperate women?
Well, in a number of ways. We have a refuge. We offer very specific immediate emergency support. So a number of organisations signpost to Halo because of our specialism. There are lots of organisations out there that actually support victims of domestic and gender-based violence, but not necessarily specifically for cultural harm,
right.
Or within the BME community. So we do a lot around immediate emergency support. We do ongoing support and empowerment, so building independence of the women so that they can lead safe and independent lives ultimately. But there's a lot around education, not just for the women themselves, but perpetrators and professionals. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done with professionals, whether that's social workers, healthcare professionals, the police. Lots of people do not know how to deal with these situations, and there's been a severe lack of appropriate support for victims because of that. And it is that problem that it's ignorance. People genuinely don't know, but then it's now time. It's gone on too long. These figures exist, and support should be available, and we need to do that through education and training.
Definitely. I'm just still shocked. You know, you think about these things happening in whole other cultures, whole other countries. You know, why do you think they are still happening here?
Because those cultural beliefs and exist. They're very, very strong. And unfortunately, it's around control. And that is the prevailing issue. That's why they still happen. Yeah. And Yasmin, who's the amazing founder of the Halo Project, always says, you know, while there are people criticising what we do and the existence of Halo, which they do.
Really? People criticise that?
Well, yeah, particularly from those communities where it's taking place.
I see.
That obviously while that criticism is still going on, there is a need for what we do. And there is a lot that goes on that is accepted and tolerated, and people turn a blind eye to it.
Wow.
Really scary.
Yeah, it shows just the importance of doing what you do. But you must hear such heavy, kind of horrific cases. How do you cope with that on a daily basis?
Well, I mean, I've learned a lot. I have really had my eyes opened and ears opened, but I'm not on the front line. I'm not taking those emergency calls with somebody who is living through a really harrowing event. I do hear of them in the next room, or people will come through if I'm in the office, and people will come through and ask somebody for advice and support and make sure that we're doing everything possible. But it's the frontline workers that actually are incredible. I mean, it's an amazing charity. It really, really is. It's been around for about 11 years now and has evolved significantly. But it's really important that the team who are working to support the victims are given not only the training that they need, but actually the personal support so that their psychological well-being is actually intact, because you can imagine it is incredibly intense. There are lots of triggers. Some of the stories you would not believe. They are horrific. And that's hard to get that out of your head, isn't it? So it's really, really important that we have fun. We do try and get the balance right. I'm not saying that we always do, but Yasmin has always been very, very keen to make sure that there's lots of light-hearted activity as well as the intense work that we do. And we're currently striving to make sure that happens and that the well-being of staff is catered for with supervisions as well as sort of fun social activities and things. But it's hard. The team are incredible. The conversations that I overhear are staggering, upsetting, and harrowing. But if we are doing something that is necessary, it's incredibly rewarding to actually hear of some really positive outcomes.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. And another statistic about Middlesbrough, I heard that it's one of the worst places to grow up a girl. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, very sadly, in 2016, there was a big report which identified Middlesbrough as being the worst place. And that was based on a number of governmental benchmarks, if you like, including teenage pregnancy, life expectancy, health, education training, that kind of thing. Which is why various organisations then sort of sprung up to address that issue, including POW.
And tell me more about POW. Like, what are you doing to change that reputation?
Well, POW was initiated by the wonderful and late Professor Jane Turner, who was Pro-Vice-Chancellor at Teesside University, and she was determined to do something about this and to give a voice to those who were overlooked and unheard in our area. And what was then established a couple of years ago was POW, which is actually manifesting in an education programme, which is delivered in primary schools, to actually raise awareness of inequality, to break down gender stereotypes, and to raise aspiration and ambition in our young people. Initially with girls specifically, but that has extended. And we do very much work with boys and girls with the support of the local business community, which is really, really important that we actually are really involving a range of professionals and role models, because we do believe that you can't be what you can't see.
Absolutely. Oh, that's lovely. You can't be what you can't see. I totally believe that. So are you kind of almost showing people what they could do with their lives, all the career options?
Absolutely, that's exactly what we do. For many of the children that we work with in disadvantaged areas, their lives are defined by what they see within their communities. So we need to actually show them what exists outside those communities and give them hope and aspiration for the future by showing them different things that they would never have come across otherwise. And it's all very well being influenced by somebody on TikTok or by Love Island or various different people in the celebrity world, but we need to show them what's really possible and what's accessible and let them know that is achievable for them should they choose to go down that route.
Definitely. I think that's brilliant, and it's so needed as well. Are you seeing an effect of the work you've been doing yet, or when will you?
That's a really good question, and we don't actually have any measurable impact, if you like. We don't have any of that data yet. I'm hoping we will before too long. But what we can report on is the incredible growth that we see of those young people that we work with. So the primary age children that we work with, year 5 and year 6 at the start of the year, and then towards the end of the year. So in July, we just had our end of term meeting at Teesside University, and we brought all of the children along, the ambassadors along, some ambassadors from each of the schools that we work with. And we ran a networking session, teaching them the power of networking and connections. We took them over to the Tees Valley Business Summit so they could practice those networking skills and talk to lots of different businesses about what's going on in our region.
Such a good idea.
And those job opportunities that exist. Then we actually asked the children to run a board meeting, to actually tell us how they think the programme was going, what they've learned, what we could do better. And honestly, they were incredibly impressive. I think we really underestimate what our children are capable of, and to actually hear them sharing their opinions and to know that they have a voice and we're developing that sense of agency is just fantastic.
What amazing experience. Again, these sort of things should be on the curriculum. Running a board meeting, it's not something I don't think I've ever done, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. Some of the guests that we invited, some business supporters and sponsors, were honestly absolutely in awe of the way that they actually managed this without any preparation. I literally said, this is what we're going to do. Off you go. Nominated a random chair and secretary. Just fabulous. Fabulous.
Oh, wonderful stuff. And in terms of life lessons, are there any life lessons that you kind of would like to pass on to future generations that you've kind of learnt along the way?
Yes, too many to probably mention. But I suppose within the context of POW, I think the really big thing for me, and one of the reasons that I feel such a strong connection with POW, not only because of my respect for Jane, is because I didn't appreciate what was possible. I didn't understand what I was capable of.
When you were younger?
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or what was out there. And I was lost. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I struggled to sort of find my way. And it's really hard, isn't it, for young people to know what they want to do? There's so much pressure. And I think that the life lessons that I've taken that I would then share is that have a goal, do something that you enjoy, but just know that anything is possible with the right attitude and effort.
Yeah, that's a really powerful message, because I guess looking at you and your career, I feel like, you must have known because you've done so well. You must have been really ambitious, but you genuinely just didn't know.
Oh my gosh, no, not at all. And I was never ambitious. Honestly, the absolute opposite.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's hard to believe.
Absolutely. No, not at all. In fact, I didn't really have any confidence until I was in my 40s, Charlotte. It's been a very, very interesting journey. And don't get me wrong, I've done some wonderful things that I'm incredibly grateful for, and various opportunities have been presented that I think I've had the courage to accept or embrace, but not necessarily the confidence. And I think there's a really big difference between courage and confidence. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and that's why I really want to help other people to understand what is possible, but it's also okay to not know.
I think that's so true. I mean, I didn't really know. I knew I maybe wanted to set up my own business, seeing my parents do that. But I was lucky to have that I could see that was possible as an option.
Role models.
Absolutely. And a lot of people don't have that, because I don't believe at school it was ever kind of taught that you could run your own business.
Not at all.
And I never knew what in either. So it just kind of muddled my way through that bit. But my advice from my parents was always just pick something you enjoy, and then hopefully you'll enjoy your career.
Absolutely.
Which, has done me okay. But I guess, it's hard if they're not getting that advice at home.
It is. And I think there's also another point to that. One step further is, if you pick something you enjoy, you tend to be good at it.
That's true. Mm-hmm.
So actually it's a sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Because you actually invest more in it because you're enjoying it. So you should excel.
Yeah.
In lots of cases. So there is an argument for that. But I also think it's really important that we try and get the message across to people that just keep moving forward, because what you might do next year is not necessarily what you'll be doing in 5, 10, 20 or 30 years' time. Just keep moving forward with something that you enjoy, and other things will come your way, and then you can make decisions along the way.
That's really good advice. That's small steps, because it can seem impossible if you're looking at your end goal and how am I ever going to achieve that?
Absolutely.
Really good advice. But I just always seen you as such a confident.
Absolutely not.
Knowing exactly.
Why do you think I'm so nervous about today?
But it doesn't come across.
It's not just your reputation, Charlotte.
No, it definitely doesn't come across. Do you think just some people are really good at hiding the fact they're not confident?
Yes.
They just go through life doing that.
Yes. And I don't know why, and I don't know when it happened, but I do think that do force, and actually I'm lying, because I do know that some of it comes from my brother, who has encouraged me to step out of my comfort zone.
Right.
There's that constant sort of, why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you try that? So I have had somebody then pushing me forward, which a lot of people don't. So I have had to find the courage to do things, even though inside I've been falling apart, thinking I really can't do this.
Yeah.
I'm not ready for this. I don't belong here. What will people think? So it really is just about, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone.
Totally, and I can relate to a lot of what you're saying. I know that a lot of people can, but it is usually more my female friends that can relate to it. And, talk about your brother who's just encouraging you to push through it. Do you think it is more of a female problem, or am I just being a bit sexist there?
I think it is more of a female problem. I really do. Men might disagree. We'd have to ask them. But I do. I think we're more self-deprecating. I think we're more self-aware. I'm probably doing loads of people an injustice here, but honestly, I do. And,
generally, yeah.
And I heard a really interesting quote recently as well, Charlotte. It was about self-confidence and actually how that's a bit of an enigma, because actually confidence doesn't come from within yourself. It's given to you by those around you.
Okay,
and by doing things with and for other people, which I thought was fascinating.
That is fascinating.
So it's about how by serving others, we're then developing our confidence and doing something worthy. And it's also about your tribe, finding who you connect with, and actually how I'm sure you've got a network of people around you who support you, who encourage you. And I feel that massively. So that's what gives me the confidence. It's not coming from within. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I'm always fascinated by this nature-nurture thing. And I guess that would be the nurture side of, finding a tribe who are going to nurture you through it. But then I do wonder, as women, are we more biologically prone to be, I don't know, less confident? Or is it society?
Question.
Is it culture, from years and years of being told, our place isn't in the workplace and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's one of the reasons why it's so important that with Power of Women that we're working with boys, because we want, yes, it's still the Power of Women, because Power of Women established the organisation, and we are focusing on the inequity that exists for the time being. But it's also about showing boys what girls are capable of, and actually getting boys to recognise the potential of women and the value of diversity and inclusion, and how the qualities of each gender can actually really complement each other in many, many situations, and how we've seen lots of examples of that coming to the fore.
Totally. I really agree. I think we've had a conversation in the past about how it's more men that need to be educated on the amazingness of women. And, that's been very generalist. A lot of men are well aware, and they're so lovely and supportive as well. Yeah. But equally, there can be some that hold us back a little bit.
Yeah, I think, but there are also some great examples of men as allies.
Totally, yeah.
And I'm sure you have as well had these conversations, but I'm constantly having the debate around, does inequality really exist? Is this just sort of out there that women keep sort of this self-fulfilling prophecy, or are they still sort of putting forward this propaganda, if you like, that women are hard done by? Is that really true? And it's probably not in all cases, is it?
No, I do question that as well,
100%.
actually. And I think sometimes there can be a lot of talk about, what we can be doing, what we should be doing, how we should be treated. But I think this sometimes needs to be more action, just crack on with it. Like the kind of setting an example, the case studies that are going to help inspire other women.
Absolutely.
More of that.
Absolutely.
And more helping other women.
Definitely,
as well.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think that's the other side of the Power of Women as well, is that we are building this community. And I know other organisations exist like Assist and the Girls Network and other organisations that are around women, supporting women and girls. But it's also about, as you say, actually creating a culture where we are empowering each other, and not being so critical and judgmental of each other, and actually looking at how we can be kinder, and actually that classic sort of phrase, lift as you climb.
Yeah, and not seeing each other as competition,
Absolutely.
Which I think has always been a big thing, whether that's something that's been brought on by us or for men. I don't know. It's so psychological. There's so many different elements to it. And
And
It's
we
just-
all have our own perspective and filter,
Yeah.
don't we, as well, in
Yeah.
terms of our own experience. So we're always going to see things slightly differently. But yeah, don't get me wrong, there's still work to be done, isn't there? Of course
Yes.
there is. But I think there are some fantastic examples of organisations and of individuals where we have men who are real allies, who
Yeah.
are helping to address barriers to equity.
Definitely. And it's that small steps thing, isn't it? Yes, it'd be better if we were taking giant leaps. But I definitely feel, compared to when I set up my business in 2009, attending various events, for one, there's definitely more women. There's more women in senior positions. And there's a lot more kindness from
great.
women to women, but also men to women, and understanding and empathy of other people's situations. That's just my experience, but
Yeah.
that's genuinely how I feel, which makes me feel good.
No, of course. But it's that classic thing, isn't it? Unless you talk about it, how is that ever going to change? So that's brilliant that you've actually seen that change. And whether it's mental health or men's mental health in particular, for example, that has been... people are much more comfortable talking about it. So there is going to be positive change as a result of that discussion and that awareness. And people need educating on so many issues. A lot of it is down to ignorance, not stupidity.
Definitely. And we're all human at the end of the day. And I think if there's any positives that are going to come from the rise of AI and maybe man or woman versus machine, it maybe will collaborate a lot better as like a human force.
Oh, how interesting.
I know.
Thought about it like that.
Yeah, I mean, I always overthink every single issue, but but yeah, it would be lovely, wouldn't it, if we come
It
together?
really would.
And, you know, it doesn't matter about race, age, you know, and I'm hoping that AI doesn't rise up against us, but, you know, that could maybe be a positive, that we are one force as human beings and the planet. But yeah, you can tell.
I'm thinking now.
Yeah, I'll switch up the subject. I've gone too deep. But yeah, a lot of the organisations you work with, they are focusing on females. Is there any reason behind that?
No, complete coincidence, I think. That's interesting.
Deeply entrenched, subliminal.
Yes, maybe. I have a very strong mum, but I honestly don't think that's relevant. I just think it's just the way it's turned out, because I was aware of Halo. I had been involved on the periphery. And then a few years ago, Yasmin asked if I would be chair. And I've been delighted to be involved with such an incredible organisation. And then last summer, there was a change within POW, and they asked me if I would be involved with that. So I haven't specifically sought out those opportunities, but I'm far from complaining. They're both wonderful opportunities.
Yeah, amazing. And still on the subject of kind of education and females, you have a daughter, don't you?
I do.
Yeah, and how have you found it raising a daughter?
Well, I have a wonderful daughter who's 16, and I have to admit, I didn't want to have a girl when I found out I was pregnant.
Yeah, it's awful to admit, isn't it? But I would have rather had a boy. Now, absolutely wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I've got girls. But yeah, it's strange.
Yes, it is. And I think that's largely due to the relationship that I had with my mum.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't great, and I couldn't wait to leave home. I had 3 brothers, so... And I think it's fairly obvious that she did favour boys. So, yeah, but once I had her, an incredible experience, and I'm a single parent, so that's had its challenges, which are hard to define sometimes. But I think being the parent of a girl, what have been the main issues there? I think it is important that girls have male role models as well as female.
Yeah.
But I've been very lucky because, as I say, I had brothers, really supportive family around me. So she has had the support of them, which has been incredible. But how have I found being a mother? Challenging, but incredibly rewarding. Incredibly rewarding. Yeah.
That's a good way of summing it up.
Yeah.
I mean, I just love it. But, you know, it's harder than work sometimes in some respects. You know, the challenges you're facing, because you haven't been taught about any of that.
Absolutely. Nobody can possibly prepare you, can they?
No, and
Not
every
at all.
situation is so unique because you get a unique individual that you're given.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's wonderful. And I had wonderful mothers. So I can't even, I just kind of, I guess. So actually, I'll tell you exactly my thought process, which, you know, rightly or wrongly. So getting the scan of the baby, gender reveal, and they said, oh, we can see the 3 lines that mean it's a vagina. And my instant thoughts were, you poor thing. You know, that's so bad, isn't it? But it was mainly because I've had a series of, I always say I've got a very bothersome vagina. You know, we knew this was going to get personal, but you probably weren't prepared for this. I've got endometriosis. I've had borderline cervical abnormalities where I've had to have them removed twice, cysts, everything like that. So that was my instant thought, oh, you're probably
Inherit all of that.
Because I did from my mum and my mum did from my gran. So yeah, but that was my exact thoughts. And then obviously I was delighted. I was just delighted I could have raised a human being or carried a human being after all the bother we'd had.
Wow.
But yeah, those 3 little lines, I was like, poor thing. I just think even in the world we live in today, and this might be right, it might be wrong, but I just feel it still is easier to have a penis.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, especially all the problems that I've been through. And I guess, you can have problems with that as well. But so that were my thoughts.
No, I think you're right. I wouldn't change it now. And I hope that as life goes on, that relationship will become all the more special.
Yes.
And I certainly have more respect for my mum. Since I've been a mum myself.
Yes.
And I do see her smiling regularly when I'm challenged.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, it's your turn now. It's all coming back to home to roost. But I guess we want to raise strong girls.
Absolutely. And my mum definitely raised me strong. She actually says now that she questions whether she raised me too strong. But I don't think she has any regrets, hopefully not. But is there a too strong for raising a girl? No.
That's a really good question. I suppose it depends how you define the strong, doesn't it? Because I think self-esteem itself is quite a sort of an interesting thing, isn't it? Because you don't want somebody to feel so confident about themselves and so that they're actually that they lose any humility.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm not saying that was my type,
yes,
but
yes. Do you know what I mean? Though? Yeah,
I do. Yeah, that's true of any human, I guess.
Yes.
But interesting. I'll have to dig a little bit deeper on what she means by that. So
yes.
Single parent though, that must be really hard.
Sorry to interrupt, but just a quick word about our sponsor, Be Daily. I've been subscribing to the Be Daily now since starting my business. It provides relevant and informative information directly to my inbox, not just about the North East, but also national news. If you're interested in subscribing, we'll put the link in the description box so you can get the business news directly to your inbox. Now back to the podcast.
I don't know anything else, so I obviously, talking to friends who have partners, hey, I'm well aware of the fact no relationship is a bed of roses. So if you have a partner at home, there are pros and cons.
That's true.
There are always pros and cons to everything, aren't there?
Yeah.
So there are lots of situations where I haven't had to get permission or advice, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I didn't have to take somebody else into consideration at that point. But I think the hardest thing about being a single parent is it is a lonely place, definitely. There are just joy as well as pain that you want to share. And I think that's a very, very sad situation because being a parent of that child, there are only 2 of you. So even if you have got fabulous family and friends to share things with, it's not the same as co-parenting, is it? And I think the other thing is that it has an impact on the child because they're inevitably going to be different because of that single parent situation. And I would say that creates more of a codependency.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I often worry that maybe she feels more responsible for me than she should.
Oh, okay.
And I think that is her nature anyway, to be fair. But also she probably feels quite like a sense of responsibility. But also she didn't have the good cop, bad cop kind of scenario.
Yeah, which is an important dynamic, isn't it?
So if I was stressed or if there's something going on, inevitably they are going to bear the brunt of that.
Yes.
They're going to sort of feel that, no matter how hard you try to mask that, I think. So, yeah.
Is her father in her life at all?
Funnily enough, he is now. He wasn't for a long time. But my daughter suffered from very, very seriously from mental health issues and an eating disorder during COVID. And quite strangely, and I don't, well, actually, I know why, because I've spoken to psychotherapists about it. But what happened was, as we were all in our bubbles and her interaction with our extended family and other contacts and friends diminished or wasn't possible, she actually then reached out to her dad,
Right.
which was really interesting because it had always been a bit of an obligation.
Okay, yeah.
In the past that I'd said you need to contact her. But she started having contact with him every single day after that.
Okay.
Or during that period, and that remained until quite recently.
Right.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting that she just obviously felt, again, that sense of belonging and needing to feel part of something bigger.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting. And do you want to talk about the eating disorder?
I'm very happy to. It was one of those horrible situations. I mean, obviously, it's well reported how many people have been affected by COVID, but my daughter was, I mean, don't get me wrong, she always had a high level of emotional intelligence and anxiety issues to some extent, but was also a bit of an enigma because outwardly quite a confident, outgoing child, very sporty, very active. COVID hit in schools sort of were closed in the March, I think,
Yes.
of 2020. And my daughter was head girl of a lovely rural school, captain of sport teams, all that kind of stuff. And very, very quickly, her mental health diminished rapidly. And I'm absolutely convinced it was a direct result of her exclusion from the teams that she was so confident in and that gave her identity.
Totally.
Gave her a sense of worth. That was her character. That's who she was. That just completely disappeared.
Yeah.
And then what we saw was, whereas she would have obviously been physically active in a team environment, she started to exercise rapidly. Now, but strangely, and I'll never know how much of this was relevant, but she did tell me later that not long before school closed, a boy in her year did tease her for being fat. Now, again, I don't know whether or not that has any bearing on it whatsoever, but what happened was that she started to rely on social media for communication, started to go down all sorts of rabbit holes in terms of extreme exercise. So she would do all sorts of really intensive workout routines and things. And then this just escalated. And I know it sounds really stupid, but there were just little things that I noticed, like the fruit bowl wasn't going down. So, and then I'd say, do you not want to have an apple? And then, well, no, I haven't. I don't deserve it. I haven't done enough yet. And I'd be like, oh, shit, what does this mean? And then when it was time to eat in the evening, no, I can't yet. I haven't done enough exercise yet. And then there were really obvious signs that started to develop. So she started to restrict, as well as exercising, started to lose weight quite rapidly, periods stopped, all that kind of thing. But then her mental health started to deteriorate rapidly to the point where she was really distressed. Classic scenario with eating disorders where there is literally a voice in her head controlling her. Tried to get help from any sort of local support services, etc., and from CAMS, but they are completely under-resourced and overutilised and under so much pressure. So I don't blame anyone, but there was absolutely no help given to us whatsoever. It was a desperate, desperate time. I was really fortunate that I could afford to look for private support, which I got in various forms to varying degrees of success. But it was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. I mean, yeah, to have your child sort of wailing that they don't want tomorrow to come.
Horrific. Horrific for your daughter, horrific for you as well, because you must have felt so out of control.
Yeah, I think that was it. And I think as a parent, you just want to protect them.
Yeah. Do you want to take a break? Are you okay? Oh, bless Bless you. We need some tissues, don't we? Here we go.
I'm okay, honestly. Thanks. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. Bless you. Do you want to stop the conversation there? Or...
No, it's okay, honestly. I suppose it was just reliving it.
Yeah. Oh, it just sounds so horrendous. So what was the time period in all of this?
So it was horrendous for about a year. But then fortunately, just so grateful that somebody put me in touch with a nutritionist, and we'd been through various different dietitians who really hadn't offered support that we needed. And I do appreciate it's a very, very complex situation. No two cases are ever the same. I did get some great advice from a fabulous organisation called SEED. Gemma Oughton is an actress who was severely affected and nearly died as a result of an eating disorder, and her parents set up this amazing organisation, and they signposted various areas for support and were fabulous. A bit of a lifeline for me. But this nutritionist was a local lady who just incredible in terms of she just connected with my daughter Lula so quickly, and she spoke in such a fabulous way about not about calories, but it was about the scientific and biological benefits of certain foods. Amazing. And I think one of the things that went against Lula when we were went to CAMS and they were trying to sort of assess her need, a level of need, Lula still had a tiny some aspiration, because she knew she wanted to be she wanted to play sport again. So that was her. She still had that.
Yes.
So we were told that she didn't meet the criteria for support, but the same day she was actually admitted to hospital because her BMI was so low and her heart rate was so low. But that aside, the nutritionist that we started to work with just connected and actually started to encourage her to engage with food again and to understand the process that was taking place by actually the intake of some of these foods were actually doing whatever within the cells and the muscles. And so Lula could really relate to that. And it was just genius. It was so amazing. So she would get her to visualise what she wanted to look like and feel like in terms of physical strength. So it wasn't about calories, it wasn't about weight, it was about being strong again and being the best sports person she could be. Fabulous.
Oh, amazing. And I know the lady you're talking about.
Of course,
yes. Yeah, we'd give her a name check. She's helped me, and her mother's helped me as well
Sarah
through various...
Beecroft.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But she's not doing it anymore.
I know, but she's going to be a teacher.
Yes, so she'll still be impacting.
That's brilliant.
Yeah,
I
wonderful.
know she'll touch probably more children as a result of that. But she was... I honestly don't know if Lila would be here if it wasn't for her.
Really? That bad? Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yes. She became her therapist, her go-to, I remember being on holiday, even when Lula was getting better, and I was trying to encourage her to eat an ice cream, and it still had to be some sort of vegan something or other, but she couldn't do it. But she messaged Sarah, and Sarah told her it was okay and encouraged her, and it was just having somebody else's permission and to talk her through that. She was amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. Amazing lady.
But one of the reasons why I am prepared to talk about this today is because there's just such a lack of awareness and such a need for more support. And I see so many cases of girls who are restricting and who are attempting to achieve something that's so unrealistic. And unfortunately, in so many schools, it's just not cool to eat. And that just, I just despair because the schools don't recognise it as an issue.
Yeah, a few of my friends went to boarding school, and out of the people I know who went to boarding school, they did have a phase of an eating disorder. It's almost seen as a trophy or a badge.
Absolutely.
You know? And it's wrong.
It really is.
That's why I love Sarah's approach, because it's about, the quality of nutrients that you're putting in your body and the visualisation of that, especially as an athlete.
Absolutely.
So important. But
absolutely. No, she was fabulous. I'll be eternally grateful.
Oh, bless. And how's your daughter doing now?
She's fab. Absolutely amazing. Brilliant. So she wasn't allowed to play sport for quite a long time because of her fragility.
Yes.
She wasn't allowed to walk the dog, let alone play sport. So that was a real challenge. But it was also a carrot
It really gave her something to aim for. So very, very slowly but steadily, she worked towards those goals and started to play sport again. It was painful when she was back at school. I think that must have been so hard for her not to be involved in that way and doing the things that she loved. But she's back up there and playing better than she ever has, and people wouldn't recognise her. It's staggering, the transformation. So yeah.
And does she talk about it?
She's happy to. I mean, we don't dwell on it. But what's interesting is, similar to other people being referred to me because of my experience, people will actually ask her for advice. So girls at school who, if she recognises or a friend recognises that somebody might have a problem, they'll say to Lulu, will you have a word? And I'm fairly regularly contacted by people that say, would you mind talking to so-and-so because their child has an issue? And I think unless you've lived it yourself, you genuinely do not understand.
Yes, no, absolutely.
I mean, more people die of eating disorders than any other mental health illness.
Really?
Because of the damage it does to your body. And unless there's early intervention, Charlotte, it runs away. It's a very, very rapid deterioration.
I can imagine a downward spiral if you're not filling your brain with the nutrients it needs. Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely. Your whole nervous system, all of your organs, organ failure, heart failure, dreadful, dreadful illness.
Horrendous. Do you think this would have ever happened if it wasn't for COVID?
That's a really good question. Not to Lula. No, I don't. I genuinely don't. But obviously it does exist, and it has existed for a long time. But I am really, really concerned about the escalation of cases, and the stories I hear are really alarming.
Yeah. Again, horrific, but I can totally understand where you're coming from when she stopped playing in the teams and sport.
Yeah.
I had a similar incident when I was younger. I caught this virus. At the time I was playing water polo abroad in France, loving all the school sports and everything. Caught this virus, ended up in hospital for a week, and then just couldn't really do anything. I didn't go back to school properly at all because it was kind of the Easter before kind of my last year, and it gave me depression because all of a sudden it was all I knew, sport, and it's not just the physical aspect that gives you the endorphins and hit, it's the team.
Absolutely. You know where you fit.
Totally, yeah. I knew where I fitted, and then all of a sudden I didn't fit anymore, and I really struggled with that.
Yeah.
So, it didn't get that bad. I didn't control my eating, but, I got very upset and sad about the whole situation.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
I heard something really interesting recently, Charlotte, and it was a conversation about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I wish I could remember what it was I was listening to. And they were talking about, obviously, yes, food and shelter, of course, is essential. But actually, have you ever heard of anyone who's died as a result of sort of, not in our world, I know that sounds terrible, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
But actually, loneliness is actually so it actually is being part of something, possibly the first need, rather than that food and shelter is a really good debating point, I think, because actually we need to coexist, don't we?
Totally.
So in terms of that hierarchy of needs, could you actually have the ultimate thing, instead of being self-actualization, it's about coexistence and mutual actualization, so actually supporting each other so that we're all part of this, of a much bigger thing.
That's a really good point, because yes, you need the food and water and the shelter to exist, but you'd exist miserably
exactly
if it wasn't for
I probably haven't articulated it well, but
no,
yes, exactly.
but I know what you mean.
Yes,
yeah, definitely. That's a really good point.
Yeah, loneliness is it's a terrible thing.
And I used to sit on the board of a charity that helped prevent loneliness in the elderly, and it was a proven statistic. I can't remember the numbers, but for those members of the elderly population who were lonely, they had a higher percentage of death through frailty. Loneliness had a direct correlation with frailty. So we work with a charity where they would bring dogs into care homes, and it really helped them feel a lot less lonely.
Yeah.
So it's not just the humans, if you bring an animal, but also there's loads of animal studies. Animals exist in tribes. We are animal.
Absolutely.
It's very important. And
of course.
You think we don't need each other sometimes. You think you can do it all alone, but it's not right.
Absolutely.
Not right at all. Oh, thank you for sharing that experience. It must have been horrendous for you.
It was, but like I said, we are one of the lucky ones. Some of the lucky ones.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And then there may be someone listening who that really resonates with, and you'll have helped them through that, especially as a parent, your parent experience of dealing with.
Yeah, well, as I said, I mean, there are some great organisations out there, but it really is, like in all sorts of situations, when you've lived it yourself, you really can relate to it and then give very specific support.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm always willing to do that.
Yeah. Would you be happy if your daughter followed the same life path as you?
Don't think there's any chance of that whatsoever,
No.
Charlotte. No, no, I wouldn't, because she's capable of so much more. She's capable of so much more than I was. And she has so much more about her, and she's had a lot more opportunity, and I think will continue to have more opportunity than I ever would have imagined. I think it's that classic sort of generational thing that each generation just has. We are very, very lucky. When I compare how we live compared to how my dad or granddad lived, it's just staggering, isn't it? But she is a very different person. Although she does have this sort of predisposition to anxiety and self-doubt to some extent, she's also incredibly driven.
And you weren't?
No!
I'm still struggling with that one.
No, not at all. Absolutely not. And I think she knows what she wants and she will go and get it. And I absolutely admire her for that. And obviously I would encourage that in every form. But no, she won't follow my path.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that she'll learn from some of my lessons.
I'm sure she will.
But no, I think she actually wants to go and live to study and live in America.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll see. And like I said before, I don't mind if she does or if she doesn't, but she has a goal that she's working towards at the moment, so that's keeping her focused and happy.
Yeah, and you can think of the holidays if she goes and lives out there.
Absolutely.
Amazing. What would you like her... Well, we kind of answered that in terms of would you like her to do anything differently to what you did? But anything else to add?
I think it's about recognising opportunity, taking risks, and valuing, it sounds really real cliche, but valuing friends and time.
Yeah, because you just can't get any more time, can you?
Absolutely not.
Whereas money, you can always make more money. I know it's easier said than done.
Absolutely.
But yeah, that's what I try and think of with my babies being so young.
Yes.
But, I know they're not babies anymore, but yeah, they still feel like it to me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's hard because if you're passionate about your career and have a business, sometimes it's not a choice. When you've got a business, you're just needed, full stop. And
absolutely.
That's quite tricky.
Very tricky.
Yeah, I do always say to myself, time is more important, which I do know.
Yes, but you do have to keep reminding yourself.
You do. It's easy to get carried away in the commercial world that we live in.
Definitely. Definitely.
But yeah. What do you wish you knew? Let me phrase that right. What do you know now that you wish you knew when you were younger?
I think, for me, lots, but I think it has to be around what's possible. I just wish I'd known what the world offered, and that it's okay to take risks and fail, and it's okay because we have to learn from those mistakes. And have you read the Daniel Pink book on regret yet?
No, I haven't.
Oh, really, really interesting. So he's done a massive piece of research on regrets internationally, a global piece. Oh, you'd love it. And he talks about, he's actually managed to categorise regrets into four different groups. One is around foundational regret, which is about things that you didn't do, like around your health or saving or or education, something like that. And then there's connection, keeping in touch with people. And then there's moral. So if you know that you made a bad choice, didn't do the right thing. And then there's boldness. So actually, I wish I'd done X. And it's that classic thing that there aren't that many things that people regret that they did, but there's lots that people regret that they didn't do.
Interesting.
So for me, in terms of what I wish I'd known, if that was the question, if I remember rightly.
Yes, yeah.
It was that actually it's okay if it goes wrong. Just try it anyway. Just be bold and do it. So that goes back to the courage over confidence thing, which took me a long time to learn.
Yeah, that's such a strong point, and I love that. That book sounds amazing.
Oh no, you must look at it. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, because it's the things sometimes that you don't do, isn't it? The risks
Absolutely.
you didn't take.
But the book talks about how by analysing what you regret, it actually helps you to assess your value, what you actually value.
Okay, yeah.
And it talks about how by looking back you can help to move forward. And actually, if we use our regrets as lessons more effectively, we can learn so much and move on and not repeat those same mistakes that we do keep sort of making.
Yeah, really strong point, because sometimes when you ask the question about regrets, people are just like, oh, there's no point in doing that. You just got to keep moving forward. It can't change anything, but I guess it can change your future and your
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, check it out. It's really good.
I will do. Thank you for that. In terms of kind of that broader picture, what's your personal philosophy on life?
I suppose that has started to take shape, and I wouldn't have known, honestly, until fairly recently. But I am a great believer in lifelong learning. I think I've learned a lot in the last 5 years. I think don't get me wrong, I think the more you know there is to know. That classic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I think my philosophy has to be it's not about winning, it's about taking part. It's about embracing the journey and learning from mistakes. Yeah.
All valuable lessons.
I think so. I think it's that classic thing, isn't it, about being in the arena and failing rather than being a critic on the outside.
Definitely. I'm a big fan of failure. I've failed lots in my life. Actually, I was a swimmer first kind of sporting career, and it was brilliant because I failed loads, and I won as well, but I learned how to fail young, and I think that's really important.
Such an important lesson.
Yeah, because especially, again, that kind of, what was it that you said, taking part, not winning. I agree in some respects, but then some schools take it to the opposite end of the scale.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm with you there.
And, life is about winning sometimes. I get it's also about taking part.
Yes.
I've just actually ordered a book on someone's recommendation called Winning by Alistair Campbell.
I've heard about
it just arrived I've just got the notification just now.
So let me know what
that'll be an interesting perspective, because I felt very much that was the culture, 80s and 90s. It's very much changed to kind of taking part, everyone's a winner sort of thing, which is a lovely kind of culture and feeling to have. But, when you come from a sporting background, it is very black and white. You're winning or you're not.
Yeah, no, I get that. And no, that's a really good point. And I think what I'm trying to say is exactly as you've described, that yes, it's fabulous to achieve and it's fabulous to win at times, but that's not all.
I agree.
It's about all the other bits as well that actually help you to achieve and then go on to win in whatever form that whatever you could define winning as in a particular situation.
Yeah, because yes, there's the winning for the fastest, gold, silver, bronze, but there's the winning, in terms of everything you've overcome to be there today.
Definitely.
Yeah, totally see that.
Definitely.
Yeah. Brilliant. Do you think our lives are dictated by fate or choice?
Oh,
it's hard,
I'm really
isn't it?
torn on this. I'm really, really torn on this. Because I often say things happen for a reason, and there's no such thing as coincidence. And but I also think we are the masters of our own destiny, and it's whether or not we recognise opportunities that come our way and what we do about it, whether or not we recognise at that crossroads that there is a green light there, or which light we take. And I think that it's. I think we are. It's down to the choices that we make. We are in control. I think we are in control. And I think there's also that classic thing, isn't there? Sometimes it's really, really hard to make decisions, and I can sometimes be paralysed by indecision at certain points. But just by not making a decision, you are making a choice, and it's about recognising that be in control of that choice, just own it.
Yeah. Definitely. But then if you look at lots of different paths in life, and you have different choices at different crossroads, if we call it that, but you may still end up at the same destination that you were always meant to end up at. That's
Who
the
would
bit
ever
that.
know? Who
Yeah,
would know?
well, that's it.
No,
Yeah,
I agree.
And sometimes in life, when you've got two options, you can't see where the other path would have led you.
No, the whole sliding doors thing.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
I know.
Have you read Midnight Library?
No, all these book recommendations. Midnight Library. What's that
So
about?
Matt Haig.
Oh yes, know him.
yeah.
Yeah, don't know him personally, but
So he wrote a book, and it's about somebody who commits suicide.
right.
Desperate, sort of, with her existence, but she ends up in this place where the library is filled with all of the different versions of her life, depending on decisions that she'd made at different junctures.
Oh, I love that.
Yes, really interesting. I think they're
Yeah.
making a film out of it.
Oh, it sounds perfect for a film. I love anything like that where you have to just really think about it. Sometimes even in simple choices, and this is classic overthinking, I think, well, if I take this, I could have done that. And even just when you think about how you met your partner or how your kids have arrived,
If I hadn't gone there or there,
Yeah.
absolutely, I know.
yeah,
I
and then
know.
it's just like, but was I always destined to meet this person? Would I have always ended up with them?
Yeah.
And maybe we just overthink things, or we think that that's a beautiful ending to life. Yes, I was always meant to be with you, and it's all a load of rubbish. But I don't know. I can't figure it out.
I know, absolutely. Was Lula always going to be Lula, or yeah? 100%.
Yeah. One of the things that does kind of make me question everything. So my cousin broke her pelvis in a car accident, and in a terrible way. She was in a wheelchair for a long time. Nothing was working that was kind of medical. So she went to see a faith healer, and her dad's massively cynical, but it was just like, let's try anything. And literally he wheeled her in and she came out walking. Now that sounds ridiculous and really far-fetched, but he is so cynical. He was like, I couldn't believe it. Now I'm a fan of it. So he was a faith healer. Apparently, like he literally touched her where her hips are, and she felt this warm energy coming through. And yes, it could have been psychosomatic, but she was just like, it was amazing. And she went to see him quite regularly after this and helped her kind of mentally as well. And she was like, how do you do all this? And then he went into some of the detail, and then they got talking. It was like, everyone who's born literally has a ticket of when they're going to die. So they've got this kind of ticket for life almost. And he was just like, I can see that. And that's one of my gifts, as well as kind of this healing. Like he was just very matter of fact about it. And Gemma was just like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to ask. I just kind of literally ran out. But how weird's that? So that's what makes me think.
Yeah, no, I get that. I can imagine that to some extent. I know what you mean.
And then if you kind of have a ticket of when you're going to leave this kind of mortal coil or whatever it is, maybe you meant to know what you do with it, or how it plays out, or maybe we're controlled by a higher power that literally, we're in a computer game, for example, and it's all programmed.
That's a really interesting concept, because at the end of the day, it's not just us in our life, is it? There are all these other dynamics and interactions that are influencing where we are at a certain time. So, it would have to be a lot of pieces in that game.
Someone I know thinks we're in a dark box, and literally the stars is the light coming through the box, just little pierces in the box. How crazy is that? But yeah. Just again, just an insight into the things that I think about on a daily basis. But, bringing it back to, I'm just checking on the time we've got left for the podcast. But time you have left, all in all, how do you want to be remembered when you die? It's a bleak topic, but we're all going there.
I think with the trajectory that I'm on now, I think. Partly I want to be remembered for being the best mum I could be, and giving Lula and whatever family she may or may not go on to have, having the benefit of that. But I think more deeply, I would like to be remembered for empowering others to do things that they wouldn't have otherwise done. So giving other people the confidence that we've talked about, that they don't feel that they have within them, but they have untapped potential that maybe by a conversation or some work that I do with them, whether that's children as part of the POW programme or people within whatever project that I'm working in at the time, that I'd like to think that I do something really positive around empowering others, and that's how I'm remembered.
I have no doubt that is actually even happening right now through all the work that you do. But now it's time for the regular 10 questions,
no.
the moment
No,
you've
no,
been
no,
waiting
no,
for. Okay, so on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 the worst, 10 the best, how would you rate yourself at the following things? How good looking are you?
I hate this bit. I can see it's so clever. It's so clever, and you really are pushing me out of my comfort zone here. But can I just say that I'm actually, as you've discovered, I'm actually really shy. It's quite contrary sort of image. But so I actually asked a couple of friends at the weekend, and I was like, "Oh, I've got to answer these questions. What on earth do I say?"
Oh, bless you, but it's about what you think.
Oh, I know, but it's really hard, isn't it? Because whilst I would boost anybody else's confidence and encourage them to be honest, I think it's really awkward. But I'm going to be brave and do it. Okay, so this one was about what? Good looking.
Good looking, yeah.
Depends how much makeup I've got on and how I'm feeling at the time. 7.
Brilliant. How funny are you?
According to my daughter, not at all. 7.
Okay. How good at cooking are you?
I'm going to go 8 because I love cooking and I think I'm quite an instinctive, albeit a bit lazy cook.
And are you a good singer?
I think so, after lots of drinks in a karaoke booth. But no, I don't think so. I think I'm probably about a 5. I think I'm probably quite shocking. Yeah.
What is your tolerance to alcohol like?
Probably better than it should be. After years of practice.
It's dedication.
Absolutely. I think that's the one thing I'd give myself a 10 for. Some friends might disagree, but yeah.
Oh, parenting skills, contentious matter, but
there are loads of times when I'd like to have been a better parent, but I think on the whole, 8.
And how good a friend are you?
8.
Okay.
Not as good as I'd like to be, but I'd like to think that people thought I was a good friend, a really good friend.
How intelligent are you?
I'm going to say 8 again, and I know that sounds really conceited, but I think I didn't ever realise that I was intelligent. But I think that I've got a brain, I just don't use it as much as I should.
And the thing is, it's not conceited at all. You know, why, again, maybe it's a British problem, you know, how we don't like to pick ourselves up. Or you feel like if you do give yourself a high score, you have to kind of explain.
Justify it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. I might start the rule, no justifying if it's a high score.
That's a good idea.
Kindness.
I would, do you know what, this is a really interesting one because I don't think I'm consistent, which was really good, really interesting sort of to self-reflect on that. And I think both self-kindness and kindness generally, I need to be more consistent. And I think there are times when I haven't been as kind as I could have been. And again, I think I'm learning. I'm hoping that I'm improving. But 8.
Okay, that's still pretty kind. Interesting thought, though. Do you think there's a correlation between self-kindness, how kind you are to yourself, and then how kind you are to others?
I don't know. Possibly.
Yeah.
But it's that whole thing, isn't it, in terms of what do you value? Who do you put first? Because everything comes at a cost.
Yes.
So actually, if I'm kind, if I give that time to that friend or person that needs my help, what is the cost to me for that? So it's a tough one.
Yeah, and can you be kind when you've totally worn yourself out and
Absolutely.
have no energy? Yeah,
Absolutely.
Interesting. And the final one that I was delaying slightly is how good at sex are you?
I can't remember.
Oh, that's the best answer we've had in a long time.
No, I think, again, that's something that I think you definitely have to ask somebody else. But, yeah.
Yeah. Can't remember. Well, we'll end on that. You've been fabulous. Thank you, Claire.
Thanks, Charlotte.
Hi, it's Ryan from Harvey Hugo and I am the videographer here. So, are you looking for a new way to stand out in today's crowded digital landscape? Well, look no further than podcasting. Here at Harvey Hugo, we specialise in creating and producing high quality podcasts that engage and inspire audiences. And with our comprehensive production services, we'll take care of all the technical details, from the recording and the editing to the distribution and the promotion. With millions of listeners tuning in every day, it's the perfect time to start connecting with them on a deeper level. Let Harvey and Hugo help you unlock the power of podcasting and take your message to the next level.